Hello and welcome to this week's weekly Old School Q&A. I'm your host Mod Gambit, and joining me on the sofa this evening is Mod Lenny.
Hello.
Mod Kieran.
You alright?
And on my right we have Mod Tide.
Hey.
Thank you guys for joining me. Oh, sorry, we have Mod Maz on chat as well. Sorry for skipping over you there. If you have any questions throughout the stream, send them to Mod Maz using, I think logged into the Old School account, right, at Old School RuneScape. And we'll hopefully answer some of your questions at the end. So I'm going to start off the normal way with a couple of announcements. So we have !progress to link you to the Song of the Elves progress blog, where the whole Song of the Elves team gave some input and insight into their development of the quest and the extra content around it, including Mod Lenny, who's on the end there. It also has details of the competitions that we're currently running. So if you're interested in making a video or art for the login screen, and possibly some lore for the quest, just lore for Prifddinas and the game in general, find all the details over there. We also have !warding, should take you to a tweet from the Old School Twitter account, which has the latest design document for the skill. If you're interested in giving feedback to that, we'll be looking at it and using it to make the final design, I believe, and blogging that, giving it to you guys ready for polling. And !Deadman will link you to details about the summer finals, which are being casted by Ayeza and Ian Spam. Those are happening at 8 PM UK time on Saturday. It's going to be the last Deadman final that we have for the foreseeable future, while we revise Deadman as a whole and refine the idea. Well, basically while we decide what we're going to do. Oh, and also don't forget about RuneFest, !RuneFest for all the details. Tickets are on sale now, so if you're interested in joining us, get your tickets. That just about covers it. So I'm going to move on. We posted, when did we post it? The account security blog.
It was Tuesday.
On Tuesday, yeah, yesterday. So I've got a very short memory. Yesterday we posted a blog written by the player support team regarding our account security. It's the second of 4 blogs that they're posting to give some insight into what they do. And joining us mic'd up over there at the other end of the room, we have Mod Parrot and Mod Steve W. Steve W is one of the managers in player support, and Mod Parrot's going to give some insight into what he does and also answer some questions for us that were resulting from the blog that we posted. Mod Parrot, would you care to sort of give us some insight into who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I look after the payments and fraud processing that we do, so letting everyone be able to kind of put payments to us and making sure they're all safe and secure. And about 6 months ago I was asked to look into account security as well.
Cool. So hopefully we're going to reassure players a little bit and give you guys some of the answers to questions that you've had arising from the player blog that we posted. I won't read out the names of the individual ones because there are quite a few players behind each one or wanting to know these things, but we'll get into them, and hopefully 2 mods over there can give us some insight. The first one is, what are your thoughts on an option to send in ID documents to Jagex to prove ownership of an account? Many players would be willing to go through the extra hassle to make sure the account is secure. I also know that some other studios use methods like this.
It's an idea which has come up before. It is possible. There's 2 main reasons why this wouldn't be great. One is regulation. I think a lot of people have said in Reddit, things like that the more information you send to us, it has GDPR compliance issues which you need to be aware of, so it's not as easy as it might sound. The second one is, if someone's sending you more information, how can you be sure that the person who owns the account is sending the right information? We've spoken to a lot of other companies who do this kind of stuff, and they have this problem all the time. Mm-hmm. So it's a great solution if your account is already secure, because you might be able to add more stuff if it's okay for us to store that information in the first place. If your account is insecure, it is really difficult. It doesn't actually help massively, because then we go back and forth on who's sent us this information.
Sure thing. The next one is, how difficult is two-factor authentication to implement on the website?
I'm not the developer, so I'm not going to say exactly how difficult it is. It's not the biggest challenge in the world. The problem is that if we add two-factor authentication to the whole website, then how do people who don't have access to their authenticator for whatever reason update it and change it?
Right.
We get an awful lot of requests in every single week, which we couldn't manage to manually look at every single one. But we're looking into how we can solve that and how we can get it to a point where everywhere you log in has two-factor.
Okay, thank you. The next player wants to know, so we said that we'll be discussing adding an authenticator delay. Will that conversation be open, i.e. sort of including the players, or will it be internal and among the support team?
So at the moment it's been primarily internal. We've spoken about it a lot, not just with the support teams, but with the product teams, community management, all these different groups around the company to get everyone's input on what the best thing we could do would be. We want to include the players as much as we can. Believe me, we already read everything you're posting to us as well, so you're already involved in that conversation even if you don't directly know it. So we are taking all the feedback on board and all your suggestions about how we could potentially implement it. So we're still looking into it, so you are involved and we want to be able to share more information about it when we're able to. Sure,
thank you. The next one is, so the recovery process itself, we talk about that. We talk about changes we want to make to the recovery process. This player's asking if the changes are more sort of overarching or if we're simply making it harder to recover accounts. And they note that doing so doing the latter will actually lock out a lot of people who don't remember very specific old information from accounts they made when they were much younger.
Yeah, I mean, so the recovery is something that we're looking at. We know that things aren't perfect right now with recovery, and we're really keen to fix that. It's one of the drivers behind the blog and why we're doing these initiatives. It is a big undertaking, looking at our whole recovery process and what we do about it. We don't want accounts to be hijacked. We want to do everything we can to sort of block that route that some hijackers use to come in through the back door, if you like, and use our recovery sort of processes. So we are looking at that. We have to think of people that, the game's been around a long time. There are lots of accounts that just don't have much information on them through no fault of the player, but it's just, how things were back in the day, and we just haven't got lots of information about an account. And we do need to think about, those people want to come back and play the game. Maybe they're coming back for mobile or something like that. We want to get those people back in the game as well. So it's about finding the balance about how we get those people back in the game, but clearly blocking off that route for sort of hijackers and malicious account takeovers. So a big piece of work. We are looking at it, and it's sort of totally on our radar, and we're going to try and get it right. We know it's not perfect right now, and we're listening and working on it.
Sure thing. Thank you, Mod. Steve W. Our last question says, you mentioned email notifications for account behavior. Is there any chance that we could opt in for push notifications instead or in addition? I know some sites will send those if your account logs in from a new computer, and some require you to confirm yes or no on your phone before you log in.
Yeah, I'd love to do this. It's a great idea. The reason why we didn't mention it is we don't have a system for push notifications which could do that at the moment. So we want to prioritise email because we have email. We could do that a lot sooner. We want to look into push notifications in the future, but we're going to prioritise what will have the biggest impact as soon as possible. But it's a really good idea.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. Something I've seen in chat, and I know it's a question that we've had a few times, so I'll add this one in. I see players talking about JAG and recovery questions in a system like that. Maybe Steve W, you'll be well placed to answer this. Why don't we implement a system like we had before with JAG?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that a lot on the Reddit thread from last night, and people do say they did like it in some ways, JAG, but I was around at the time when we were managing that process, and it did come with a lot of problems. People would set spam answers, for example. People would typo their answers, and we used to get a lot of contact from people that couldn't remember their recovery answers. Look, other companies do use recovery answers. It's a possible option. Nothing's off the table. We're looking at everything, but it's not a silver bullet approach to kind of recovery answers. and it does come with those inherent problems. So if we can find a way to get around of those, and it's something that works for everything, then we'll happily look at it. It's not completely off the table, but yeah, does need considering that, even we're thinking about current challenges about things like social engineering, and that's very often a way into security answers, and you need to consider that in this day and age. So yeah, a decent idea, something we're looking at, but it's probably not right up there as something that's that we're really giving some really close consideration, just because of the inherent problems that we've sort of experienced in the past with them.
Thank you. ModMaz has drawn my attention to a question from the chat about account security. So player has asked, can we gain the ability to have the choice to change the login details to email instead of using old usernames for accounts made before 2010?
We'd love to be able to. This goes into the challenge with our legacy system. So it's not impossible, but it would be incredibly difficult for us to do so, which is why we haven't done it.
Right.
It's one of those things. There's so many things that we want to do. We need to focus on the things which we can deliver fastest to make the biggest impact and biggest improvement for everyone. That one is just a real challenge for us.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you both. I think that just about covers it.
I don't know if I could just pick up a couple of things
absolutely.
I've seen in the chat. Someone talking about sort of, could we just make our accounts unrecoverable? I can get that sentiment. I do understand it, but to just completely block. How do we stop someone who has genuinely forgotten their password, that can't get into their account, to just say to them, well, go away. You can never play RuneScape again. Your account's gone. Just doesn't feel very sort of player friendly. So. Probably won't go down that approach. Somebody else was also saying something about, I've forgotten. Case sensitivity on passwords. If you have a read of the blog, that is actually something that we're doing. So if you have a read of the blog, it's right towards the top of the blog there. We are looking at the password complexity, and that is something that's coming. So a few people in the chat saying, you just need to fix that. Well, that is one thing that's definitely coming fairly soon.
Cool. Thank you very much. Right, well, if you have any more, I believe you guys are sticking around till the end of the stream, or my...
Yeah, you can.
Okay, cool. So if you guys have any more questions about account security for either ModSTW or ModParrot, feel free to drop them in the chat to ModMaz, and we'll get around to them. In the meantime, I'm going to move on to the usual Q&A questions. So let's hop into it. The first is from Escobar. And they ask if we can improve deviant spectres, saying that they offer lower XP and worse drops than aberrant spectres. Maybe we could consider lowering their defense or some other buff. What do you think?
Well, they're supposed to be harder because they're in the Catacombs and they have access to Skatizo, so I don't think we really should.
That's fair.
But if their drop tables are worse, or it's not as lucrative or in some capacity, it makes sense. Like, if they're harder, it still makes sense to have a better drop table, right?
Yeah,
I'm not sure how good this drop table is.
It depends if you think the totem pieces make up for it in value.
Yeah. The drops are terrible, apparently. But then there's also other people saying it isn't the worst. So.
I think the drops are okay. It's just because they take a bit longer to kill. I don't know. Me personally, I'm not too worried about it. I wouldn't change them. No. Sounds like no one here has had too many problems killing deviant spectres, so I guess we'll leave them.
I mean, I've never killed them. I mean, I think that's the problem, right? Like, a lot of these people even in the chat, a lot of people don't kill them. So perhaps that is the problem. Maybe it's worth looking at, but
Sure.
It would take investigation to review exactly how much we want to buff a drop table by, or change the stats.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, a lot of people in chat now saying they're not alive content, let's say. Okay. Non-member suggests that we remove herb boxes from the Nightmare Zone shop, especially given the drop of price in herbs following the release of the Farming Guild. What do you guys reckon?
I think on the team we're all fairly sort of fond of removing things from the Nightmare Zone shop when it's suitable. So if there's a big enough demand for it, it's definitely something we could look at. But I imagine there would be a lot of unhappy players with it because it's kind of sort of a consistent thing that people spend their Nightmare Zone points on that a lot of people have gotten into the routine of at this point.
That's fair. I agree. I mean, wherever we can break down the Nightmare Zone, the better, I think.
I also don't like that they're essentially some sort of daily, because they're limited, right? How many you can purchase per day.
Yeah.
That's fair. Seeing a lot of support in chat, actually. I thought there'd be a lot of negativity towards this one, but okay. Be interested in exploring that one further. Another player suggested we actually move them, instead of just remove them flat out, we could put them in the tithe farm just to make that a bit better, which is, I think, an interesting idea. Yeah, we could straw poll that one.
Give you more of an incentive to actually to keep going back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Another player asks, can we see combat spells on the Arceus spellbook? Currently it functions as a prayer training method rather than like another spellbook.
I'm not against the idea whatsoever. We just need ideas for what they would do. It needs to serve a purpose, otherwise it would just be dead. But also, I imagine people are quite cautious when adding something that's going to potentially be quite powerful in that spellbook. We have Ancients, we have the standard one. They both have their niches. So it needs a niche that's not too powerful. But
what we could do is, since it's resurrecting the undead, we could add some undead spells. So for instance, a more powerful version of Crumble Undead.
That sounds But do you think that's going to be enough to make it usable? I worry that the difficulty with combat spells on the Arceus spellbook is either it's going to be too powerful for PvP, like it can't really be better than Ancients, but if it's not powerful enough, it just won't be used. So that's a really difficult balance to strike. If you guys have any ideas,
that's exactly what I'd say to the person, especially who's asking the question, like what combat spells would you want to see?
I see necromancy spells in there, but I'm pretty sure that wouldn't go down well. If what they mean is sort of summoning, essentially, undead creatures, I don't think that's gonna fly. Results from that straw poll are in though. So actually, 76% of you would move the herb boxes to the tithe farm, which is interesting. 77% now. So thank you for that, Mod Maz. I'll move on to our next question, which is from Daklos. They say, can we add some fire pits of eternal light to the following locations? Thorgish Khan South Dungeon, the Lumbridge Cellar Dungeon, and the Shazian Crypts. I don't know how often people actually use the Shazian Crypts, apart from Dragon Slayer 2, but...
I mean, I wouldn't be against adding more of them to other dark dungeons people use. It probably makes sense to do ones people use, so maybe not all of them, but I can imagine Dorgashun, South Dungeon, people use the agility course sometimes, so yeah, it would make sense.
We probably want to be sort of a bit more considerate of where we do want to add them, rather than just sort of putting them wherever people go that needs a light source, because light sources are a thing. We've got the Kandarin headgear that acts as one as well, and if we just go making everywhere permanently sort of lit by an eternal fire pit, they all just kind of lose their use in the game. However small it may be.
That's true. Although the fire pits are locked behind a fairly, healthy requirement. But yeah, I see your point. Our next question is from Aurorus, and they ask if we're working on any ideas to get people who don't PvP to give it a try. Currently, you need a specialized account, so usually a pure. The skill gap is massive, and supply costs are quite, considerable. So these barriers prevent people from trying PvP. Have we got any ideas for this?
It's difficult. It's really difficult because unlike back in the day, like I'm talking like 2006, 2007, when Wilderness was very active, the majority of people there had no idea what they were doing. So it felt extremely fun to go and do it. Now, the things that are upcoming are we've got a potential update to LMS. I say potential, it's being looked at, and potential bounty hunter update coming up, right? Do you know when roughly they're expecting bounty hunter?
I'm very hesitant to promise any dates. The design is being shared around the team tomorrow, I believe, and we've already run it by sort of a focus group and individual sort of high level members of the bounty hunter community.
Awesome. I see potential because some certain aspects have to be pulled and whatnot. But yeah, LMS update bounty hunter updates are coming, so there should be some incentive for newer players to get involved, and we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, I understand from Mod Rock that he's started QAing the Last Man Standing changes, so it is.
Yeah, they're in QA now.
And he tells me that before they're implemented, there'll be beta worlds, a beta of Last Man Standing for you guys to try out and test before it's actually put into the live game. So watch out for that. In terms of getting people into PvP more generally, I was having a conversation with Pure Spam, Knight, and Rakesy when they were here for the Spring Finals rerun of Deadman. And we talked about this, and they suggested an idea which was like, you know how we have tournament worlds pop up every so often where players can set their stats and gear and whatever and try out PvP. Having that, but not having it within a sort of Clan Wars portal area, so a very small area, but permanently rather than on sort of on rotation or on an off season. What do you think about that idea?
I think if we added it and put the focus on it, I mean, when we do launch those worlds, they see a lot of attention at first, like in the first few days after we launch them, but generally, if we have them up for a month, there's barely anyone on them by the end.
Sure.
So we need to put some focus on it and how we can do it. Like, instead of letting people get any gear, maybe on a specific week, you go in with this specific setup.
Right.
And so everyone who plays with the same setup, so you can actually start to get some practice with certain setups each week. I'm just spitballing ideas, to be honest, but I don't know.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
don't know what else, but I think it would need that sort of deeper thinking about how we use it.
Yeah, sure. No, it's a very like sort of basic idea that we need working on, but yeah.
The other thing people mentioned is ranked, and actually keeping track of like sort of some notion of skill level,
Right.
and actually sort of matchmaking. But it does require quite a lot of. I mean, doing a full level ELA system is huge, but perhaps there's ways to try and do that on a smaller scale with a sort of mini game. I know people are shouting about Fist of Guthix as another area of PvP that was a little bit more accessible, but again, it's quite a large update. I think we'll see how LMS go and how Bounty Hunter go, but I'd be quite keen on potentially using tournament worlds in some capacity again.
Sure. Okay, our next player, Hun Peter, wants us to increase the value gained from Laren's chest. So that's the one where you get the Wilderness Slayer keys, right? Where you can open up a chest in Deep Wilderness and get a reward based on Konar's drop table. A few players have said that it feels a bit lackluster, that it's not got enough to be exciting. So they want maybe a new unique or something else to draw players there. What do we reckon?
I like the idea of a unique, but I think with the items that's going there right now, I think it's quite nice because Wilderness Slayer is really good for points already. It's good for XP now.
Right.
And it doesn't really need buffing, but a unique would be nice for people to hunt.
All right.
Did that just drip?
Yeah.
Okay. Apparently, yeah. Modrock again had an idea for this, actually. He said he was looking at the Konar table, and obviously it offers the dusk colour scheme for the Mystic set. And he thought, what about, because Laren's chest rolls on the same table, what about have it offer a different colour set for Dawn? So with sort of opposing colours, like a light version. I thought maybe that was a cool idea, but I don't know if it would be enough to draw players there. Spherical Box says, looking at previews for Song of the Elves, the gauntlet looks very dark and is lit by the runic stones around it. Can it be lighter on release?
So I think the screenshots that we previously shown of the gauntlet had it on minimum, if not then pretty low brightness settings. If you turn it up a bit, obviously it is just significantly brighter. I think when we've been playtesting it ourselves, I don't think anyone's really had any issues with sort of the darkness of it because everybody tends to play with it set brighter than those screenshots were taken.
I didn't personally notice a problem with brightness. I normally play on max brightness. Could we put out a picture potentially?
Yeah.
And just show a picture on max graphics.
Yeah, it's probably
people are worried about it.
I think the image used in the progress blog was darker than it would actually appear.
Yeah.
So it's given the impression that it's very dark.
Yeah, I can put a screenshot out on Twitter of the environment with sort of like max brightness or somewhere in between after the live stream and let people see how that looks.
Cool. Just to respond to the chat, they absolutely hated that idea of an alternate Mystic colour set, so probably not gonna not gonna do that. So I've got a cute noob question next from Pandpa, and they say, what quests would you guys recommend to get some starter levels up, mostly skills? I was thinking of doing Sea Slug for fishing XP. Do you have any recommendations for them? I mean, the go-to is Waterfall quest, but that's obviously to get you started on combat.
Other quests to get skills up.
Fishing contest.
And before that, the Night Sword.
The Night Sword's always a good one.
Sword,
Dig
yeah.
Site is another good one for mining.
Yeah. Chat, do you want to help this guy out? Do you have any suggestions? I don't know which quests are best actually for skilling XP to get
Fight
started.
Arena, that's another good one.
The feud.
Monkey Madness 2. Yes, it would be good for XP, but probably not for an early player.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Museum Quiz, yes. 1k in Hunter and 1k in Slayer. Straight to level 9.
Yeah, that's a good call. You can avoid the annoying birds that you start out on otherwise.
You're welcome.
Our next player, Crumble, wants to know when we can expect to see the other god-related halos from Castle Wars, i.e. Bandos, Armadil, and Zaros. Currently, you only get the Saradomin, Zamorak, and Guthix coloured halos.
I don't actually know much about this. Do they have the same stats? Are they equivalent, just cosmetic differences?
Yes, I believe so.
So they don't actually serve a different purpose to add these three, it's just cosmetically cool.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we're adding those as possible rewards from LMS.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, they're primarily used by bounty hunters, PKers. So it makes sense to maybe add them as a last man standing or bounty hunter reward.
I think as it is, a lot of the people who try and go for the existing Halos just kind of go and grind out Castle Wars without really wanting to play it. So adding more rewards that would just be encouraging the exact same might not be the best option for adding those items to the game.
Sure. So our next question is from Gypsy, and they ask, can we get a group hunter activity where a team of 4 or 5 players hunt down a large beast?
It sounds pretty cool. It's obviously quite a big skilling update. Like, I love doing that sort of thing. The more interactive skilling methods that require a higher level of attention rather than the more AFK stuff, or even the highly intense stuff. Like the Hunter's quite intense, right? You're watching your traps, you're constantly going under all 5, but it's relatively mundane, it's repetitive.
Yeah.
Herbivore's quite nice because it's repetitive, but it's a bit bigger scale. So I love this sort of thing. Yeah, it's similar to like, I really like Volcanic Mine for mining. A similar idea for construction, like getting a contract to like build certain things for people, which are longer form training methods that are a bit more interesting.
Sure. Yeah, I like this idea. Would you do some group hunter if it was implemented more tight?
I would. It'd be fun to do instead of just sitting there in the swamp getting my swamp lizards.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Middleton93 says, can something be done about people crashing Ironman accounts in the Catacombs, especially when bursting? I know we've answered this one before, but the question was asked, and I thought maybe it's time we say it again. Does anyone want to field this one?
I can't remember what was said last time.
I think our stance is that it's a multiplayer game. Like, it's an MMO. Competing for resources is natural and expected.
It's healthy for the economy.
It's a restriction on the account that you accept when you make it, right? So no, we're not really going to change anything for that specifically.
It's difficult to stop, to be honest, even if we wanted to. I mean, reality is realistically having. I mean, if it's overcrowded, that's a problem, and that's what leads to crashing, right? Which isn't obviously that nice to have happen to you.
True. Lazy asks, what are the team's thoughts on adding more endgame group bosses?
I feel like we're actually quite good on the top end endgame right now. Like, the next sort of thing I would like to do is a bit more closer to maybe more like Chambers of Xeric, which is where a lot more people can get into it. Maybe a little bit higher level than God Wars sort of thing. That sort of area. Like, we have two. We have obviously have Chambers of Zarek. We have Theatre of Blood, which caters quite well to the really high level PVM community. We have Inferno as well. Obviously, it's not a grindable boss. It's not a group boss either. But doing something more that could get more people involved, I think would be cool.
Okay.
So, not God War's simplicity, but like I'm thinking more like maybe I guess like Alchemical Hydra difficulty, but as a group boss sort of thing would be cool.
All right. Nick wants to know if something can be done about the issues with house advertising on World 330. He's got a suggestion whereby you put up a notice board, which would have the host's name, construction level, and allow you to quickly join their house, rather than just having people auto chat spamming their username outside.
That's an idea that's come up a long time ago as well. I think it's still sat on our list somewhere as a potential idea to do. But yeah, I do really like that idea.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea too. I think if it's not in our backlog, I'll double check. We should add it and see if we can get it polled.
It is in there. 100%. I remember it's looking at it a few times.
Okay. Lots of people in the chat in reference to the boss question, talking about Nex. Is that something we consider adding to the game?
Nex would probably fit the bill quite well for one of those group bosses. It's probably a bit more difficult than I was talking about, but Nex, annoyingly, seems to be one of these bosses that use every engine feature we don't have. So it's actually not an easy one to do. Me as a player, I played Nex so much back in 2011, literally a year and a half non-stop, basically. But I would love to have that boss, at least mechanically, in the game. Rewards, obviously, are a sticking point for Nex, because we can't do, at least I don't think the community would be on board with HP boosting armor, because it was quite meta changing.
Yeah, we'd have to come up with something original for the rewards, for sure. But okay. Well, there's definitely space for a Zaros-themed God Wars boss, at least, even if it's not Nex exactly.
I mean, a lot of its mechanics we can do. There's certain things like the way it jumps around the room. Firstly, also it runs.
Right.
We can't make bosses run except if it's quite straightforward, like Bloat, where we can sort of hack it in.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Tom wants to know if we could get an Earth Warrior room in the new Forthos dungeon. He says that they are assigned as a task by Vanica, but this can only be completed in the wilderness. It feels a bit weird for a non-wilderness master to assign a wilderness-only task.
Earth Warriors are quite annoying. You have to do, obviously it's similar for the champion scroll as well, where people are killing like 5,000 of them, and there's only that small little wilderness spot. I wouldn't mind adding Earth Warriors outside of the dungeon unless people feel really strongly that it's like, no, it's got to be hard. It's got to be wilderness content. They don't really serve much purpose, to be honest, other than that Slayer task and the champion scroll. So
it would be nice, but would it fit into the dungeon though, in the theme?
I'm not sure if it's into the theme of the Forthos dungeon. No.
Yeah, I think the Forthos dungeon's already it's got a very particular theme, and especially lore-wise as well. We probably couldn't work in Earth Warriors, but maybe somewhere else more suitable.
Yeah, I agree. If we added them elsewhere, it would not be multi.
Earth Warriors in multi, please, says Motox Evan.
Of course.
No.
Could lock them in the Earth Rune Altar room.
If something's multi, it makes getting the champion score really easy. So no, it'd be single way.
All right. Lunch Guy wants to know why farming was taken out of the warding design document. He can understand putting more emphasis on hunter, but says that farming could still be a source of warding materials.
So basically, to give context to how we do the feedback process, I mean, when we first put out the original blogs, which, like, how long ago was that? 2 months ago?
Yeah.
It's getting a while ago. Obviously, the feedback was quite strong. There was a lot of negative stuff. But maybe the direct core of it was okay. But we basically spent a week to 2 weeks basically diving through all of that feedback, and we formed a bit of a unit in the office. We got basically a bunch of people from across the different teams we have, and we sat down for 3 dedicated days and just went through all the feedback, and we addressed the main points. We highlighted and prioritized what we think is the most important things to fix. One thing we saw quite a lot of was, you've just done so much for farming.
Yeah, sure.
We've added the farming guild, which added a whole host of new stuff and new plants, that another farming expansion started to become a little bit unnecessary, and we don't have much scope on certain patches, etc. as well. So when that warning design was first written, it was sort of without the full knowledge that farming guild was happening. So we decided Hunter is the skill that really makes more sense.
Sure.
When we were thinking about it, because Hunter really doesn't offer that much right now. There's a couple of things that are useful, but really directly making it a partner skill for this makes a lot of sense. So instead of doing sort of growing things in I think Magnamery they were looking at for originally, instead we'll have moths that you can catch with a butterfly net, and also different types of trap as well, like luring them in with a lantern. You know what moths are like, it's summertime right now, you've probably got them all over your bloody bedroom.
Okay.
I think that's cool.
All right. Yeah, and I saw some comments in there. I know the Twitch chat particularly is, warding's particularly contentious for you guys, maybe more so than in other parts of the community. I know there's some concern. I just saw it in a message there that we're quote unquote forcing warding into the game. We've commented on this before, and I know you have particularly, Kieran, but that's not really how it is at all, especially given that it will be polled just like any other major content change. We're just sort of at a position where we're still acting on feedback. We're going to come up with the final design draft. I mentioned this at the beginning. If you missed it, !warding will take you to the current design draft. Feedback on that is going to go into forming a new blog, which will then be basis for the poll.
It's the same process we take for any update. We made an initial pitch, we listen to feedback from the blog and repitch it. It just so happens the skill's quite big, there's a lot of conversation around it, and obviously the feedback process has taken a while. But, you know, Mod West went on stage at RuneFest last year to announce warding. I feel the bare minimum we should do from that is present a coherent skill that we feel delivers on that promise. You guys have the power to say yes or no, and we'll see what happens from there.
Cool. Me Sirius wants to know if interfaces like the chat box and inventory will ever scale with high resolution monitors. On some monitors they look tiny.
Sorry, I just want to answer another question.
Oh yeah, sure.
Just on the warding thing, I've seen a bunch of people saying this online as well, not just in the Twitch chat, but how much dev time are you spending on warding? Right. I mean, we're not actively developing a lot of warding right now. It's not like we spent the last 3 months working on it. We've been doing it along the side of other things. It's been a lot of Mod West's focus to do some design work, and a lot of the time it's been sending the design doctor to various people in the community, various other people in the office, and getting feedback on it, which is generally quite a slow process, and you're waiting for those points to come back. Then you do a little bit of iteration on it, you get more feedback, etc. It's not been like a whole team sat developing warding right now. It's not that at all.
Sure, thank you for that. Yeah, because I think there is that perception where it's not necessarily clear what each individual developer in the Old School team is working on. So there's this worry that we're spending all of our time on one particular thing, and that's not really how it is. Actually, I suppose I'll take this chance. Sort of Mod Lenny and Mod Tide haven't had a chance to weigh in much just yet. Do you guys want to give some insight into what you're working on if you're able to?
Question is, are we able to?
Or just to give you guys, I don't know how much you can talk about what you're on at the minute.
So, Mod Tide and I and Mod Bruno's on our team. We've been working on first-time user experience stuff, so we're trying to optimize the early game. We got a lot of new players coming in with mobile, and it's trying to better teach them and equip them with the tools they need to be able to navigate this game, which has intentionally got this steep learning curve, etc. That's what we're trying to do, really.
And then at the minute, I'm currently working on some of the Elves still. There's a fair bit of detail in the things that I've been working on and still am working on in the progress blog that went out last week, I believe it was.
Yes.
I mean, we're currently sort of coming up to the final stretch for the whole project, which has been a very long, ongoing thing. So it's really to kind of try and get everything tied up at the minute and wrap it all up nicely, ready to release.
I feel like people don't understand the perspective of how massive this update is.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say, like, from a content development perspective, it's one of, if not the biggest update that we've had for Old School, sort of everything included.
It's a big quest. There's a big PVM challenge. There's a big skilling boss.
It's like Thriftiness is an update in itself, and it's just a refinement coming from this quest. So.
And most importantly, a big light puzzle for you guys to to enjoy. If you guys want more insight into what Modlane and the rest of the Song of the Elves team have been working on, !progress will take you straight to that blog he mentioned. I don't know if it's still a command, let me know in chat, but !elf stream might take you to the specific stream that we did. Otherwise, it should be on YouTube, on our channel.
I'm also worried about the light puzzle. I mean, the one thing, did we announce that there's the shadow stuff?
I don't know what we did.
I don't think we've mentioned that. We can?
We can. Do you want to talk about it?
So there's certain things that, looking at the Morning's End Part 2 light puzzle, Modheads kind of looked at and said, okay, this makes the puzzle difficult, but not in a sense of like a challenge that you'd expect in a quest. It just makes it sort of frustrating more than anything. And he's done a lot of work to, in this new light puzzle, just avoid those same issues without going into too many details. It's still difficult, but in more of a sort of logical challenge sense, rather than just frustrating you to the point of no end.
Sure. Okay.
Sorry, what was the question about the high-res one?
Right, yeah.
Scalable inventory.
Yeah, scalable interfaces like the chat box and the inventory. So people playing Old School on their 4K monitors on their like beastly battle station setups. Have very
spent
small
$5 grand on a PC and then play Old School RuneScape.
Yeah, they have very small chat boxes and inventories. Are we going to be letting those scale anytime soon?
If I'm not mistaken, isn't that something that several years ago now Modian started to work on? I say started to work on as it was definitely not in a state complete and ready to release.
Made a very, very rough prototype.
It's one of those things that I think with a game as vast as Old School is now, there's a lot of work can be done and you'll see a lot of quick progress for it, but to have it really polished and ready to put out to you guys will take such a long time, and it's just such a huge undertaking that I don't know when we're likely to get around to it. Obviously, I think it's something that a lot of people would like to do, but it's just not a simple thing to do.
It's not actively being worked on right now.
Okay.
There's other priorities taking precedent at the minute.
All right. I'm seeing in chat, it's probably because you're here, Mod Kieran, I think you've seen it too. TOB drop rates, where at?
Look, I've obviously seen it's becoming a barrage now. It's like it's non-stop. I said this week, the other day I tweeted saying I will get them done this week. The problem is, it's not like just saying, oh, it's 1 in 512 like the whip. It's a whole system to try and explain, so it's not a quick job. It actually going to take me a few hours to sit down and properly document that out on an infographic. But yes, I am doing it this week. Literally, the reason I tweeted it is because I wanted to hold myself to it. So tweet at me if it's not done by Sunday. But I'm planning on tomorrow spending the airtime to do it. And then I'm going to send the infographic to the CM team so that it can be scheduled for being put out, so that it can be put out across all the social media platforms and stuff.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. I know players are very keen to see it. So our last question before I move on to chat questions, if you have any of those, by the way, don't forget to send them to modmaz at Old School RuneScape in chat. Our last sort of pre-selected question asks for the option to choose which music plays in our player-owned house. Is that something we can achieve?
Be nice. Have a little jukebox in there.
The jukebox suggestion, yeah. I think it's come up a couple times before. I don't know.
Select a single track.
Okay.
If you do it in a way that you basically change the default track that plays in your house, it should be doable, I think.
Okay.
So As in, I like the idea of doing it via the jukebox. So you build a jukebox in your house. You set which track is the default track for your house.
Right.
And obviously, when you do that, your house plays that music. When somebody else comes into your house, it checks if there's a jukebox and plays that track instead of the Home Sweet Home one that nobody plays.
Right.
But I like that idea. Just so everyone's house can have sea shanty tea playing 24/7.
That's true.
I mean, you say that, but I think Flute Salad would have to take the cake in my house.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you can't play 50 Cent in your house. I mean, unless you just mute your game and open Spotify in a different tab.
Yeah. There is a second part of this question. I think this is where it gets more complicated and sort of pushes the limits of what we can achieve. Would we be able to sort of create a playlist whereby it goes through several tracks, or is that
Not at
beyond scope?
not at the minute, unfortunately. To do that, we would need to actually know when a song ends. And funnily enough, you think, yes, you can know when a song ends. You know when it starts, you know how long it is, but things can delay it, things can stop it. And so we would just make an arbitrary guess, and it would just probably end up skipping mid-song.
Right.
So we actually have no means to do that. I have added the request to be able to do this to the engine team's backlog. Whenever they get to it, I'm not sure. But
Okay. Well, in the meantime,
I would love to do it.
in the meantime, at least on Spotify, there are a bunch of old school tracks. I think I remember when we uploaded those, but I think it was alongside the album release. So you've at least got those to create a playlist with in the meantime. So I'm going to use the last 10 minutes to look at chat questions. The first one is, well, it's been asked a lot of times. They're asking if there's any info on Group Ironman. I don't think much has changed in that department in terms of what we can say currently.
We really want to do it. As soon as we know that anything's actually properly going ahead, we'll let you know. But it is a project that's being investigated constantly. We've been going through scoping sessions, designing the exact requirements for exactly what we want to do with it, so that the relevant teams around the studio can understand what work that would entail for them.
Okay. So I'm just reading the next question. I'm a little bit confused by it. Sorry, add a spell to the Arceus spellbook. So yeah, it's a suggestion. A spell that allows players to aggro a monster that's attacking someone else in multi-combat and could be cast every 2 minutes. Requirements to cast would include Architectural Alliance, 88 magic runes to cast, so 10 souls, 10 death, and 10 bloods. 88 magic as the level rec. And then yeah, the runes I described. I think I've described that really poorly because the chat doesn't understand.
I have no idea.
Okay, so a spell that you can cast once every 2 minutes that allows you to aggro a monster that is already in combat with someone else, given that it's in multi. Is that broken? Do you think?
PvP, I think that could be broken. You can't box now if you're in multi.
That's true. But if it was on like the Arceus spellbook, maybe it wouldn't be so broken.
Well, no, it'd give the spellbook use in PvP.
I probably wouldn't have it in PvP.
Oh,
I think I'd just be
I think
too
that'd
much.
be pretty cool.
In PVM, it could make sense on certain bosses. Like, I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
a boss like Grado, people have generally do with a specific person tanking, so you could maybe make it switch if the wrong person's on it and stuff like that. But
Right, yeah, draw the aggro from, yeah. Okay.
I said something stupid. Boxing in multi.
I was going to let that slide. I said let it slide.
but there aren't a huge. The other thing, there's not a huge amount of bosses that actually do entail a specific tank.
Tank, yeah, that's true.
This could help to give that purpose, but yeah,
Okay.
I would say a spell might be actually the wrong way to do it, given that it would be quite limiting if you're trying to actually design a boss, because certain bosses you want people to be on ancients, or you want people to be using the standard spellbook. I mean, maybe it gives flexibility, but
What are the odds that we'll see a new imp or butterfly get added to the game?
if you vote for warding, you'll get moths. Not quite the same thing.
Well, we do have.
I think there was an idea for a wilderness impling at one point, but I'm not sure if that was
I don't know
popular
if
or
I'm
not.
keen on wilderness implings. It's sort of, again, it's one of those things that's going to draw skillers into the wilderness. who will be risking basically nothing anyway, and not really enhancing PvP, as far as I'm concerned. We do have the new implings coming with Prif, though, don't we, Mod?
Yeah, we had Crystal Implings, which were put out as part of Poll 2 for Song of the Elves and Prifinus, which will be exclusive to Prifinus and have sort of a unique drop, which I believe we had also polled. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yes.
Yeah, so they'll drop the Elven Signet Ring, which will sort of prevent your crystal equipment of some nature or other from degrading, or have a chance of doing so. And yeah, you'll be able to catch those as any other impling within Prifinus.
Oh, okay, so yeah, there you go. There'll be a new impling and potentially new butterflies or similar. Sorry, reading again. So next player says, speaking of the Tithe Farm, can we get an update on Bologona blessings? I'm sure I've said that wrong. Currently it costs 2 points for 1 scroll, and 1 scroll only affects 1 grape. Could we make it bless the entire vine instead?
Is this for getting the Samarak?
Grapes, yeah.
So, okay, yes. I think these are really currently underused, underpowered, and no one does it because it's so bad. It could absolutely do it for buff, because I like the idea of these coming from skilling as well as the few monsters that drop them.
Fair. Yeah, I've seen a lot of demand for. I don't really do Tithe Farm, so I'm not sure how bad it is, but I hear it's bad getting it.
Grape farming itself is pretty awesome. Obviously, grape farming is separate to Tithe Farm itself,
Yeah.
but you basically have to do both if you want to get the Zami wines.
Okay. Oh, it's a shame Mod Maz is not mic'd up, because we've got a question here saying, how about that fossil boss? She's just shrugged at me. So I'm not really in a position to answer that, but maybe she'll type something here for me to say. In the meantime, why not make a clan? Why not make a clan slayer? Because me and my friends wanted to do something where we would have to kill, for example, 1,000+ type of monster in a week for a nice reward.
In a clan.
Yeah, it's Clan Slayer. So it's an interesting one. It's like Team Slayer, but much, much bigger.
That's really cool. I like that idea. We need the clan system first, really, because clan chats aren't really like a proper group. It's just something you can join and leave. So it needs to be a dedicated clan thing. But yeah, so clan system first, which is something like with Ironman that's currently going through that investigation process to understand how long is this going to take to do, when can we get it done for, etc. But yeah, I mean, doing something like that, and that's what clans really gives you. I mean, firstly, you can join a group, but it also unlocks potential for this sort of thing and doing interesting things.
Sure. Yeah, cool. I think that's a really cool idea as well.
Yeah, I like stuff that clans can drive themselves and make events for themselves. It's awesome.
The next player wants us to let them store molds in each furnace separately. Making 13 rings per run is for scrubs, they say.
I like this idea.
Yeah, well, Mod Maz likes the idea. What does the chat think? Give him a second. What do you guys think?
Storing molds.
So would you use them on the furnace and then it would show up on the side? Like a little rack?
Yeah, I guess.
I think it'd be nice.
So that you don't need them in your inventory.
Mm.
Although it would be nice, is this just a straight up
It's just
buff?
a straight up buff.
Why though?
Does it need a straight up buff like that? I mean, although it's nice to have a full inventory worth of supplies that you can actually craft.
If we were to do it, I would want it to be a reward for something. So you get a special sort of mold that can be attached to the furnace, like a magnetic one. Like I don't know, but yeah.
Okay.
Reward from a quest, reward from some sort of other skill, something like that, as opposed to just saying everyone's got it.
Sure. So we've got an answer from Mod Maz regarding the fossil boss. So unfortunately, it's not a priority for the team at the moment, but depending on how warding and other things go in the future, there may or may not be space, but it's not a priority. It's not really planned or scheduled for. There's no timeline, but we do have a design. Can we have a final chapter for Slug Menace as the main boss flees at the end? Once completed, it would allow us to obtain a rune tier prayer armor, maybe via monster drops.
I think Ash has made noises about wanting to do this at some point. There's no current plans to do it. We are looking at a bunch of different quest ideas already, but I don't see why not. I mean, we've done vampire sequels. Obviously, we're doing a huge elf sequel. These are both quests that RuneScape's done before. This is similar, that RuneScape's done it. So it's not off the cards.
Sure, cool. I mean, I know there's a lot of demand for a finale to that quest line. In terms of a better prayer armor, I'm not sure. I mean, we've seen suggestions for it, but I don't know if we need that based on how good the current one already is, Proselyte. Oh, we've got a new chat question just come in. So for the new spider boss, could we have an item which prevents our health from regenerating? Perhaps a fossilized spider egg. This would be equipped in the ammo slot. And would be great for Darox in Nightmare Zone / Mole. And,
that's all I was thinking of. This is the Nightmare Zone buff waiting to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for Nightmare Zone, yes. Maybe we can make it banned in Nightmare Zone, but...
Yeah, that's a good point. It would be very strong for that, making it even more AFK than it already is.
I mean, we could make the restriction that it's just literally arbitrarily blocked in a Nightmare Zone.
I mean, maybe if it was in the next slot rather than ammo slot, because that way you're sort of sacrificing quite a lot of bonuses for it. Okay, well, I think we're just about touching on 6 o'clock, so I'm going to wrap things up. I don't know if Parrot and Mod Steve W have been sat there the whole time, have anything to add based on the chat. No, I'm getting shaking heads, so I think everyone's happy. As happy as can be. I'm going to thank everyone on the couch for their time. Modmaz on the chat. And well, you guys for watching, of course. We'll see you next week. And well, have a good one until then. Bye-bye.